And welcome back. I am so excited about what we're talking about today, but before we jump into it, a couple of things. We've got some very exciting guests coming up over the next few weeks and months. Very excited to have some wonderful people. We've got Tamara Stryjak coming back, and she's going to be talking about technology as a clinical counselor and what to do about that, which is a topic I have not exactly tackled myself just because I feel a little unqualified to tackle that, especially since I am working through helping one of my children not be addicted to technology anymore. So we do have her coming on. We have Adam Andrews coming on to talk about literature and teaching children literature and loving literature. He'll be coming on, as well as some other exciting guests, which I will wait to introduce in the future. So stay tuned. Some very exciting things. And my friends, for real, the newsletter is coming out. However, because I know many of you signed up for like last year, and I've been terrified to do it. Like I sit down and try to write it and just freeze and get scared and then try to figure out all the technology pieces. And anyway, it really is coming out end of June. But instead of it being weekly, which I found was way too much for me to do with still homeschooling my kids and doing the podcast, we're going to do it monthly. And so I want to have a lot of rich resources for you to pull from each month, to encourage you, to inspire you, and to use. So it will be coming out at the end of June for sure. I know I said that in January, and then everything hit the fan and nothing happened. So, but we're anyway, it's in the middle of finishing it up, and I'm very excited. So anticipate that it will be monthly instead of weekly. I will do an introduction email so that it's official. Anyway, but so that's coming up. Also, those of you who have reviewed the podcast, thank you so much. Even to the person who gave me a 3-star review on Apple, I appreciate you taking the time to review. Even you, person, I don't know who it was, but thank you for all of the wonderful reviews. I do appreciate it. I look at all of those reviews, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then a shout out to Kathy. You guys have heard me talk about Kathy. Kathy has become one of my favorite people, just with her insight and everything. So Kathy shared on our School to Homeschool page. We started deschooling in January, and I'm just now noticing this amazing phenomenon. My granddaughter, 10 and a half years old, struggles with reading, language arts, and tested 2 grades below in reading comprehension. She had an ignored IEP that's in the school system. I've been doing read aloud most days. She usually has nothing much to say with narration. Today, while reading, she noticed a plot in the story that I missed, and I'm an avid reader. I've noticed her having spot-on opinions and observations about books, movies, and conversations. The shackles coming off is a real thing. Just had to share. What a huge win. I'm telling you, my friends, when we take our children's education into our hands and work with them, beautiful things happen. I've talked about IEPs before. I've talked about 504s. It's interesting because most schools that I've seen, that I've been in, I've had children with IEPs and 504 accommodations. And half the time they didn't get met because the teachers are overwhelmed and dealing with all these kids trying to make accommodations. And most of the accommodations involve one-on-one help anyway, or sitting up close, or, like it's very personalized. And as a parent or grandparent or caregiver, you can accommodate your child's needs because it's you and them. It's not a teacher with 32 kids in the class that they're trying to accommodate for. Right. So my heart was so full of joy for Kathy's granddaughter and for Kathy and the beauty that's happening in just a few short months. I love to hear everyone's progress. So hit me up with messages, put it in the School to Homeschool private Facebook page. I'd love to hear your successes and some of your failures, because guess what? Not everything's going to be perfect all the time. That it's part of homeschooling. It's part of life. We have to have the lows if we want to have the highs. Like there's going to be, I've shared, like I am dealing with a child who we perpetually are dealing with screen time with him. And he's a great kid. And so we have our lows, and there's gonna be days that are hard, and there's gonna be days that we feel like we're failing. And then there's also gonna be days that we feel like we're winning. So anyway, Kathy, way to go. Super, super proud of you and excited for the progress of your beautiful grandbaby. All right. Today, I want to talk about, it's a kind of a coupled issue. Boredom and imagination, and kind of the death of imagination, and how do we rekindle imagination, not only for children but for ourselves, because I feel like, and I've noticed this myself, I feel like we've become a society that it perpetually has to be entertained. And anyway, I want to start by sharing a couple quotes and then some Facebook posts that I've been reading from these moms, kindergarten moms, who are so concerned about teaching curriculum right away when children are little. And it all ties in together with imagination. So bear with me, because you're probably like, wait, what does that have to do? It's gonna come full circle. Hopefully it'll come full circle. Okay, this is from Albert Einstein, from Cosmic Religion with Other Opinions and Aphorisms, 1931. Albert Einstein says, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. Fred Rogers, dear Mr. Rogers, says, play gives children a chance to practice what they're learning, okay? Because that play plays into imagination. Maria Montessori, when it comes to play is the work of a child. And then finally, Fred Donaldson, PhD and a play researcher, children learn as they play. Most importantly, in play, children learn how to learn. So I want to talk about play, imagination, boredom, and all those other good things. On Facebook, in one of the kindergarten groups that I'm in, even though I actually don't have a kindergartner anymore, these are some of the posts. Opinions on this for kindergarten year. Mixing curriculums gives me a ton of stress because it makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong. My last curriculum was a faith-based one, and my son and I just didn't like it, and we ended up stopping homeschooling because of it. We're trying again this year. Would this be okay? I just need something structured that covers all bases. He's not a fan of coloring, and I'm not a fan of him only learning about the Lord. I want him to learn about math, science, history, reading, writing, problem solving, colors, etc. Her child is 5. Okay. Okay. Next mom wrote, hi, everyone. I'll be homeschooling my son this year, and he'll be in kindergarten. I'm really nervous and stuck on what curriculum to get because there's so many. Please help. Okay. Again, 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. I need a curriculum to teach my child. And then this person wrote, I'm debating whether to start my 5-year-old daughter in the kindergarten curriculum or the grade 1 curriculum. My biggest concern about the kinder curriculum is it seems way easier than what our state standards and outcomes for kindergarten are, which I'm like, why? Anyway, the state standards drive me crazy. I've shared that in other podcasts because they're arbitrary, right? And our children are individuals. We're not I don't believe in a conveyor belt education system anymore. And I'm not shy about sharing that. Anyway, I'll continue on. It's just, anyway. So it almost seems like the grade 1 curriculum, she gives a specific curriculum. The grade 1 curriculum lines better with what kindergartners are learning in the public schools here. I'm in Texas. Has anyone jumped straight into grade 1 and skipped grade K? If so, was your child able to keep up all right? Thanks. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, as a mom who has adult children now, I could have grandchildren if my oldest and his wife decide to have children. They don't. So I'm not a grandma yet. But I could have grandchildren, but I still have an elementary age child, and I still have a middle schooler, and I have 2 high schoolers. And I just think I want to just shout to these kindergarten moms. I'm like, they're 5. Like, take a deep breath and relax. There's this huge focus on that they have to have these academics right now or they're going to fail. And the interesting thing is we've lost this need to play. I thought last week, if you did not listen to Andrew Pudua, the founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, he was on the podcast last week. Listen to him. He is brilliant. It was such an honor to interview him. And one of the things that he said is it's more detrimental for them to push reading too early than it is later. It's more detrimental developmentally for them and all the different things. So it's better if you wait to teach them reading than pushing them too early. I've shared this one before too. There was one mom, oh my goodness, I didn't respond because enough people were frustrated enough with this lady, and I felt bad for her. But she was like, my 2-year-old will not sit. I was trying to do flashcards with him. And for 15 minutes, he just sat and cried and he wouldn't listen to me trying to teach him the letters and the sounds. And I'm like, he's 2. What the heck? What we've seem to have forgotten is this need for play. And in early childhood, children desperately need imaginative play and free play and time to play and time outdoors. As Maria Montessori said, play is the work of a child. And developmentally, they learn as they play. And that's the beautiful thing. And as we read aloud with them, which you all know, I am a big proponent of reading aloud. Somebody did ask me on a Facebook page, what exactly is reading aloud? It is what it sounds like. You sit down with your children, doesn't matter the age, because my teenagers will read aloud with me as well. And we read a story together. So if they're little, you read, you just read various stories. The older that they get, you introduce chapter books. But when they're little, you read picture books. Maybe you start with Sandra Boynton books, The Barnyard Dance, or Moo Ba La La La, or you're reading a little bit older, you're reading the Mo Willems books, and you're reading the Pigeon books, or you're reading Elephant and Piggy, or you start to introduce small chapter books like Little Bear and Frog and Toad. The older that they get, that you start to read bigger books. But you are reading, you're sitting down, and you and your child are reading together. We do a lot of read alouds in the car. Now, I am not reading while I am driving. We do listen on Audible. Yesterday, we had an argument in the car because the teens wanted to listen to The False Prince, and my younger kids wanted to listen to The Great Brain. Again, book 2, which we've listened to a million times, but repeated listening to books for children is really a good thing. And so even my 12-year-old and 8-year-old have heard these stories a million times, but they want to listen to The Great Brain. And we did have an argument. And finally I said, fine, guys, you know what? If you want to keep arguing, I will just listen to my book, which is a new book that just came out called The Parent Revolution. And it's a nonfiction book. And they're like, no, right? So they came to a compromise that on the way there, we would listen to The False Prince. And on the way home, we would listen to book 2 of The Great Brain. So we do read alouds in the car as well, because they're a captive audience in the car. So let's talk about how we can encourage play and imagination. And let's talk a little bit about boredom. And that's kind of, like I said, there are a whole bunch of things that I wanted to discuss today. But I brought up the kindergarten parents because their preoccupation with curriculums seem to overshadow, and granted, it's just a snapshot, into their life. I don't get the whole movie of their life, but it's just a snapshot. Like they're so preoccupied with that they have to have curriculums in order for the children to become smart and learn, that they miss some of the key things that help children develop appropriately, which is creative play and imaginative play, creative play, being outside, reading aloud, things like that, things that help the development of children. So we're going to get into that and play, and how do we spur the imagination? How do we ignite imagination with children and with you as a parent? Because I feel like we need it too. So before we get into that, I have to talk about technology, because unfortunately, technology affects children's imaginations. It affects our imaginations. It affects development for children, all of those things. So let's talk about this for just a second. This is from, and everything I'm going to quote today or reference today will be in the show notes as always. This is Dr. Nicole Berkins. She's a child psychologist. This is from the Q Studio, not studio, it's Q Studio. She says, adults in our generation think back to our childhoods and all the time spent outside, climbing trees, building forts, creating things with Legos, making art projects, and creating plays complete with costumes from the dress up box in the attic. I've had many parents wonder what their kids are missing out on by not engaging in those activities, and feel concern about whether children today are growing up without imagination, curiosity, and creativity as a result. While digital devices and media certainly can inspire creativity and imagination in some ways, parents are right to ask questions about how constant engagement with passive device-driven activities are impacting the development of imagination and creativity. So then she goes on, the impact of technology on children's imagination. Many children are spending increasing amounts of time engaged with screens and often prefer to spend time with digital media as opposed to other activities. Research has shown that child creativity and imagination have decreased significantly over time when compared to previous generations. One of the reasons this seems to be occurring is increased time spent on digital devices and media as opposed to non-screen activities. The passive nature of many digital activities, such as watching videos or playing pre-programmed games, may limit opportunities for open-ended play and imaginative exploration. They also tend to reduce the amount of time kids spend in physically active play, which we know is critical for the development of the brain, including imagination and problem solving. Okay. And then she goes on to talk about boredom, which we'll get to in a moment. Then we have I'm pulling it up here, guys. I have about 10 different resources I'm looking at. I'm going to butcher his name. It's Dr. Ashok Seshardi, MD, and he's a psychiatrist in Austin, Minnesota. I didn't know there was an Austin in Minnesota. Apparently there is. Today, and this is from the Mayo Clinic website, today electronics capture a significant amount of people's attention, but this readily accessible medium may have swung too far in capturing people's attention. Instead of short-term relief from boredom, many people spend hours on electronics, which I'm guilty of and I'm trying to remedy. It's easy not to feel the passage of time while scrolling TikTok or watching YouTube videos. Quickly, an hour or two can pass without a person realizing it. For all that time spent, people don't necessarily feel refreshed. Rather, most people experience greater fatigue. Consuming so much time on electronics lessens the amount of bored time, but also it causes a different problem. The less people experience boredom, the less equipped the brain is to deal with it. So let's talk about boredom and imaginative play and all of those good things. Boredom is a crucial thing for us to spark creativity. As I mentioned with Dr. Nicole Berkins, this is what she talks about boredom. She says, Contrary to popular belief and the complaints of children, research shows that boredom can be a powerful catalyst for creativity and imagination. When children experience boredom, their minds are free to wander, daydream, and generate new ideas. This can feel frustrating to them as it requires them to self generate ideas and figure things out, as opposed to passively engaging with stimulation or ideas provided to them via apps, video games, and other media. Embracing moments of boredom allows children to tap into their innate creativity and explore the world around them in imaginative ways. While children may not like it initially, expecting them to have time when they are bored and having to come up with their own ideas of what to do, even if that means lying on their bedroom floor and staring at the ceiling, it is very beneficial for their brain development. Okay, so we need boredom. And going back to Dr. Seshardri, why do people get bored? The feeling of boredom is when the brain struggles to fill time. People may feel restless or have a lack of interest in their surroundings. Boredom is common, with over 60% of US adults reporting that they feel bored at least once a week. People's brains rarely are bored while focused on taking part in demanding tasks like work or school, or while taking part in a good conversation. When these activities are done, people experience fatigue and seek ways to entertain themselves and their brains. Okay. So, but he goes on to talk about the need for the brain to go into a resting state, and how this relates to boredom. He says, restoring the brain. When your brain is focused on an intense activity, it exerts a lot of energy. When you finish the activity, it returns to a default state. This is normal and the way the brains restore. The default state can be thought of as a resting state. Several interconnected brain regions are active during this time. These regions seem to act in unison as a connected network. This is referred to as a default mode network. When people are in this state, many important things are happening in the brain. It's consolidating memories and reflecting on lessons learned. The brain plays through scenarios and applies what was learned and how it could be used in the future. People spend time thinking about themselves and others. They reminisce about the past and daydream about the future. But the resting state can also be a creative time, and it can lead to finding creative solutions to problems that are bothering people. For example, many people claim to come up with great solutions to problems while they're grappling within the shower. This is because their mind is free to wander while their body's engaged in a mindless task and captive to the task. While in the shower, the person can't escape or play a game on the phone. The brain is thinking through something almost effortlessly and often coming up with solutions to problems they have had in the back of their mind for a while. And he talks about the same thing happens when they go on a nature walk. So realistically, like, we need to get bored at times. And I'm guilty of this, where I get bored, or like I'm sitting at a doctor's office waiting, how we're always perpetually waiting for something. And so, of course, I pull out my phone and I start scrolling. Recently, I decided not to pull out my phone, and I just kind of sat there and looked around, and I was amazed at how relaxed it made me. Not at the beginning. At the beginning, I felt a little anxious, but then as I just started observing people and observing around me, I felt like part of me was waking up, and it was kind of cool. So let's move to, okay, we want our kids to get bored. We want them, I think it's an easy solution to go say, oh, go watch Bluey, or, oh, go watch this, or, oh, go watch that, as a simple solution, but that's not always the best solution for our kids. We want them to get bored so that they can come up with creative activities, so that they can start using their brain, so they can start using their imagination and tap into beautiful things. I've often wondered if several of our inventions, some of our greatest inventions, came as a result of boredom. I mean, certainly many of them came because they wanted to solve a problem, right? But how many inventions would we have not had today had those people lived, today, that they wouldn't have come up with those ideas because they would have just gone to their screens and then the idea, there would have been no wrestle, no reason to have a creative spark or a creative idea. Um, and so I think like as a society, are we going to lose out on ingenuity and inventiveness because we spent so much time on our screens and don't allow our children to be bored? I don't know. It's just something that's been on my mind. So let's move into the imagination and like, how can we take that boredom and spark imagination and imaginative play? So let's start with little children and imaginative play, which is essential for development. This is from the Miracle website, and they talk about the importance of imagination in child development. They say imagination is pivotal for human development, driving creativity, problem solving, and personal growth. It serves as a mental canvas for innovative ideas, propelling beyond conventional limits. And then they go into what is imaginative play. So let's start with young children, imaginative play. Imaginative play refers to children playing without set rules or structure. It's also called dramatic play, playing pretend, or make believe. Because imaginative play is open-ended and unstructured, this type of play is only limited by imagination. Kids have complete control over who they are and what happens. They become whoever they want to be, a 5-star chef, an astronaut, a doctor, a ballerina, an animal, a mythical creature, anything in between. And then it talks about using imagination. Might seem like a simple part of childhood, but it's important, goes beyond kids just having fun. It also helps kids develop important life skills such as creativity, independence, and problem solving. And in the article, it also talks about social and emotional development, artistic development, language development, communication skills, physical development, encouraging. And then it goes into talking about how do you encourage children with imaginative play, which we're going to talk about some different things you can do for your littles, and we'll go through the different ages to encourage imaginative play. This is from Dr. Susan Irvine, a QUT associate professor in the School of Early Childhood and Inclusive Education. In an article, Tips for Building a Child's Imagination, she said, why is imagination important in child development? Imagination supports learning and the acquisition of knowledge. It does this in 2 ways. Children draw on their imagination in play to revisit prior knowledge and experience. For example, a day at the beach, revisiting a relative in the hospital. This in turn expands their knowledge and understanding of these experiences. However, it's not simply about learning what is already known. Importantly, children use their imagination to explore new knowledge and ideas. For example, revisiting the day at the beach could lead to imagining a life underwater. When play taps into imagination of other children and adults, the possibilities for exploration and learning are endless. And then she goes on to say the connection between children's imagination, knowledge, and learning has been known for some time. Celebrated Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky has had a significant influence on early childhood education in Australia and around the world. Vygotsky is particularly interested in the imagination, creativity, and learning. He distinguished between 2 types of brain activity: the ability to store and reproduce existing knowledge, and the ability to draw together existing knowledge and experience to create new ideas and possibilities. While recognizing both support learning, he maintained that building children's imagination, creative thinking, and ability to generate new knowledge and ideas was critical in modern society. Now, notice they didn't say, and getting a curriculum is critical, right? It's the play. It's that imaginative play that becomes critical in development. Supporting imaginative play and other creative experiences are recognized as providing opportunity for children to explore new ideas, practice problem solving, plan and test ideas and solutions, learn through trial and error, take calculated risks, and learn to accept failure and try again. Now, Dr. Peter Gray, in his book Free to Learn, goes heavily into this, like the need for children to take risks on their own in imaginative play, because it teaches them early on where their limits are and where they're not. And we're seeing a problem with that now, where children and teens don't know, have not ever developed that ability to see what their limits are. And so they go way overboard because they never learned that early on through play. Anyway, I go on with this. Creative thinking involves students learning to generate and apply new ideas in specific contexts, seeking existing situations in a new way, identifying alternative explanations, and seeing or making new links that generate a positive outcome. Okay. So the short end of it is that we need play. Oh, and I'll just want to finish with this last quote. This is by Dr. Jerome Singer and Dorothy Singer. They say, psychologist Sandra Russ identified a number of different cognitive and affective processes that are associated with pretend play. Her research dealing with play involves fantasy, make-believe, symbolism, organization, cognitive integration of seemingly separate content, and divergent thinking, the ability to come up with many different ideas, story themes, and symbols. Pretend play allows for the expression of both positive and negative feelings and the modulation of affect, the ability to integrate emotion with cognition. It also teaches self-regulation. This is really cool. Some research done by Burke, Mann, and Ogan, and Hirsch, Pasek, Golinkoff, Burke, and Singer suggests that make-believe games are forerunners of the important capacity for forms of self-regulation, including reduced aggression, delay of gratification, civility, and empathy. When children use toys to introduce possible scenarios or friends, the representation of multiple perspectives occurs naturally. Taking on different roles allows children the unique opportunity to learn social skills such as communication, problem solving, and empathy. Okay, so now there it is. Children need to play. They need it for development. And you and I need to help facilitate that. But we also need to put down our phones and be creative too. So let's talk about things that we can do to spark imaginative play with children, and things that we can help our older children do, which involves us as well, as far as like similar things that we would do for imaginative play. Okay, so I made a list of things that we can do. I'm just going to pull it open really quick. Let me find it here because I've been... Okay. Whoops. Here it is. Okay. So some things that we can do to help our children unlock imagination. And a lot of this applies to you and I too, moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and caregivers. Limit screens. We got to say no to screens. So I've already told one child that video games are off. That's all of them. Like, we're not playing video games this summer. The end. And then now we're limiting screens too. I'm like, okay, you don't need to be on the iPad. You don't need to be on the TV. You don't be on YouTube. And I'm a supporter of YouTube, but you don't need to be on all the time. So we're limit screens. By the way, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because we keep talking about this. Number 2, get into nature. You need it. They need it. Get out into nature, even if it's your backyard. Number 3, allow for time to play freely. I think that we overschedule. Like, I didn't realize this. I felt it before with my older kids because they were in all of the things. They were in, the soccer and baseball and, all of the sports and all of the things. And it wasn't really until we started homeschooling that I was like, I cannot do all of the things. And they're not going to be able to do ballet and gymnastics and soccer and Ninja Warrior and this and that and piano and. I am much happier when there's less on the schedule. And funny enough, my kids are too. We need to allow them time for play and stop overscheduling ourselves and our kids. And it's hard because we perpetually get fear. We have fear of missing out. I did. And anyway, now I don't as much. I'm like, too bad. So sad. Okay. Declutter the unnecessary toys or the crap toys that don't spark imagination, which is a lot of them. I used to think like all the electronic toys were so great because it had the word Einstein on it or whatever, you know what I mean? But we needed to declutter. Number one, too many toys for kids overwhelms the brains, as I learned from one of my children's therapists. So get rid of all the unnecessary toys. This week, so I have a friend who runs a charity here in our town that she started she wanted it to make a difference. And so she helps people that are coming out of homelessness or foster care system or different things that are moving into an apartment or a house. And then she helps find people to provide beds and kitchen supplies and things like that. So she posted on Facebook this week, there's this little family, this mom, she's taking on 4 foster kids. They're moving into an apartment. They have nothing. We need this many twin beds. We need this much, bedding, all these things. And I said, I saw it a little bit late and I said, okay, how can I help? And she said, the kids don't have any toys. They're ages 10 to 4 and there's 4 of them. And I was very excited because I happen to think that toys, the certain kinds of toys are better than other kinds of toys. So I went and got toys that they would enjoy, but that would allow for imaginative play and also some strategy. So I picked up Connect 4 because that's a game they could play together. I picked up Uno because I thought of like the things that my kids love because they were perpetually playing Uno and Clue. That's been our most recent nonstop board games that we've been playing. I picked up blocks, which allow for imaginative play. I picked up some Magnetiles and I picked up some Legos, a box of Legos. I even noticed that thinking about this, I was like, even with Legos, now people buy the kits and they no longer use their imagination to create. Not that there's anything wrong with kits because I bought my kids plenty of, the Lego kits. My daughter got a Harry Potter Lego kit. I bought it for her for Christmas one year. But just straight up, I just got up like a bin of Legos where they can create and they're the most proud of the stuff that they create anyway, not necessarily the ones that they are told what to create, but that when they use their imagination to create their own things, it's beautiful. So I guess I've been a little disturbed going, we've even taken away some of the imaginative play with Legos by going, here's the kit. Again, it's not that it's bad, but man, kids sure are proud when they create their own stuff with Legos and it doesn't necessarily go in a kit. My Jacob, who's 12, I bought him this big tree kit and it was a Lego one and it was one of the more expensive ones. And that was his whole Christmas present a couple years ago. And he built it, but he's like, he wasn't excited about it. He wasn't excited finishing it because he didn't feel like it was completely his creation, which really surprised me. But yet he creates these little things from his own mind and he's proud of those things. Anyway, okay, so declutter unnecessary toys and then have toys that spur creativity, which we'll talk about some of those toys, what some of those toys are. Create a space for creative items, such as art supplies, and allow for them to get bored. You don't have to entertain them all the time, my friends. We don't. It is not our job to be their entertainment 100% of the time. Can we play with them? Yes. My daughter loves for me to play pretend with her, my 8-year-old. I used to be very good at pretend. And then I lost it for a long time. And then, ironically, I did improv as an adult with a comedy troupe for a couple years. And they told me, they're like, okay, you've got to tap into playing pretend like a child again because at first I was struggling with it. I've done comedy for many years. But I hadn't done improv professionally before. I had done sketch. I had done stand up. Don't expect me to be funny. I think I've kind of lost it anyway. But I did improv, and my mentor that was in the troupe with me said, "You've got to tap into being a child again and play pretend." That's what improv is. You are pretending. And I learned that once you start using the pretending muscle, once you start using that imaginative muscle, guess what? It becomes easier, which is crazy that that's how it works. So allow them to get bored. You do not have to entertain them all the time. So what are some things that you can get for your kids? Well, for younger kids, you could have large plastic crates, cardboard blocks, or a large empty box for creating a home. I don't think there's anything more exciting to children than a refrigerator box, if we're going to be completely honest. Old clothes, shoes, backpacks, hats, things for dress up. Old telephones, phone books, which I don't think those exist anymore. Magazines, cooking utensils, dishes, plastic food containers, table napkins, silk flowers. Stuffed animals and dolls of all sizes. You don't have to have a million stuffed animals either. Different dolls of different sizes. Fabric pieces, blankets, old sheets for making costumes or forts. Theme appropriate materials such as postcards, used plane tickets, foreign coins and photos for a pretend vacation trip, writing materials, and of course, art supplies for them to get creative. Okay, so that's for younger kids. And even I find that even my preteens and early teens still love a really good big box. I had to chuckle one year. I heard this guy speak, and he said that for their daughter was obsessed with tape and had used all the tape in their house. So for her birthday, they bought her like 40 rolls of tape. And now that child, who at the time was like 9, is an adult. And she still said, my very favorite birthday present was when you bought me all of those rolls of tape. And she used them. My 16-year-old just used, or 17-year-old son just used up an entire roll of tape while I was sitting there talking to him. He was making something. I'm like, you are using up an entire roll of tape doing it. And he's like, I know. Isn't this great? What the heck? If you have a 1-year-old, rather than getting them crap toys, get them a box of tissues. That's fun for several hours, and it'll cost you like $1.50. And they'll just sit and pull out the tissues. Somebody told me that right before I had my youngest, and I'm like, that is brilliant, right? They just love to play with it, and then they play with the box. Plus, most kids, when they get the box, when they get the presents, they want to play with the box anyway. Okay. Now going back to the Mayo Clinic. As we're getting older, here's some ways that we can embrace boredom and spark our own imaginations and creativity. For those of us who are older and for teenagers, balance activities with rest. So encourage rest for your kids. Try something new. Encourage your teens to try a new club, hobby, or a game, or a new book, or a new recipe. Get outdoors. Embrace curiosity and kindness. Get involved with people in the world around you. Embrace reminiscing. Talk about, it says, if excessive reminiscing becomes a problem, try to channel focus on current or future goals and wishes for a few minutes. And then he goes on talking about how to help children with boredom, acknowledge their feelings, and then help them come up with a solution. My solution usually for my son is when my 12-year-old says I'm bored, I'm like, awesome, go mow the lawn. And then he suddenly isn't bored anymore. It's amazing. Some other things that we can do is take a walk, meditate, read fiction books. And by the way, if we're reading aloud to our kids, it benefits us as well. Daydream, do simple tasks. For example, cleaning, cooking, walking, yoga. All those things as adults boost our imagination. I once heard a speaker talk about depression, and she's like, when you're depressed, just do something. Maybe you get up and put your makeup on. Maybe you go and clean the kitchen sink. You do something so that you're not focusing on the depression. Now, as a person who has had clinical depression most of my life, I appreciated that and I've employed it and it's been marvelous for me. So you do something and it doesn't have to be big. It could be as simple as, okay, I'm just going to put, go through the mail and put away the stuff that needs to go in recycling, and file the rest. Okay, number 6, you can tell a story. Coming up with stories with your children, such a great thing to spark imagination for them and for us. Doodling, which is great. Have you ever just sat and doodled? I actually do it during church all the time. It helps me listen better. When I was in college, I used to sit. My degree is actually in costume design, my bachelor's. I have an associate's in acting, and then a degree in costume design. My bachelor's was in costume design, and I used to take to my classes. I would take the projects that I was working on. I remember I was working on the details of a hat that I was making, and I'd sit and sew the beads on the hat. And I was able to think. And the professor was like, I'm really concerned. One of my professors was like, I'm really concerned because you're not listening during my class. And I'm like, am I distracting you? And they're like, no, but I'm just worried that you're not listening. I'm like, okay. And it was not a huge class. So it was one of my theater classes. And so I said, no, I could tell you exactly on which stitch you said what. It was better than taking notes for me. Just that simple act of sewing. But I do the same thing if I don't have, my hands have to stay busy. So doodling is a great thing. And it helps reduce stress, enhances problem-solving center of the brain, and it boosts imagination. This was interesting. Find blue. What this means is blue is often called the color of the mind. Strong blues will evoke clear thoughts, while soft blues will help stay focused and serene at the same time. So if you need to connect with your imagination, wear something blue. Look at a blue piece of art or just stare at the sky. What? And by the way, yes, this is from 10 Simple Activities to Boost Your Imagination, which again, I'll have this in the link. Number 9, change your routine. When you choose to do different tasks, different ways of doing your daily tasks, you activate your brain to learn and be more open to the unknown. If you're right-handed, try using your left hand while brushing your teeth. Choose a different destination. Okay, and then number 10 is visualize. This is a step up from daydreaming, more like giving your imagination a simple but specific task. I was trying to do that last night, and I ended up actually falling asleep. But I was like trying to visualize this little cottage. Like I had this little secret cottage. I read a story once, the Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. It's a fiction book. It's one of my favorite young adult fiction books. And she talks about this family in the woods that she stays with. And I like to visualize what the house would look like. And it's like this old cottage. And I know that sounds silly, but I know that visualization helps boost the imagination. So I was visualizing last night this house, and then I ended up falling asleep because I was really tired. And I slept great, by the way. So those are some things that we can do. And also have your teenagers do those same things, visualization and changing routines and doodling and reading a fiction book, meditating, taking a walk. Your younger children, all of us, get off the electronics, spend time in nature, go on walks, read aloud together. All of these things, they're not new, but yet they're simple. And it's the simple stuff that has the greatest impact on things. Just 1 degree difference on an airplane will take you in a totally different direction. It's the little things, it's the simple things that matter. So with that, my friends, let's help spark our little children's imaginations. Let's help spark our teenagers' imaginations. Let's spark our own imaginations. Allow for boredom. Allow yourself to be bored and allow your imagination to flow freely and be creative. I love you, my friends. I hope you have a great week. Our next podcast will be with Adam Andrews of the Center for Lit. He's got some great insight on teaching children literature. You'll really enjoy what he has to say, just like you did with Andrew Pudawa. If you didn't listen to that one, you need to. In the meantime, have a great week. I hope you get a little bit bored this week. And so do your children. We'll talk next week. You got this, mamas, papas, grandmas, grandpas. Take care.
If you enjoyed this today, please like and subscribe. You could also join our private Facebook group at School to Homeschool or sign up for our newsletter at www.schooltohomeschool. Have a great day.